If you had to battle a powerful warlord, what would you do? In a battle between the rich and the poor, you'll have to protect your family from your past mistakes. And you will be forced to watch everyone you love die in order to survive the incoming war and change the world. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat SILCO'S armies in Arcane Part 1. This girl is going to watch her entire family get brutally slaughtered. Vi here is a tough, shit-talking little girl that has grown up on the wrong side of town, underground in a place called the Lanes, a terrifying area filled with crime where everyone must fight to survive. And she finds out some rich person has come down to buy some stuff from her town, and she tracks him back to where he lives. In this rich city known as Piltover, a city of innovation where only the most powerful people can live, reaching the top of this building with her siblings, orphans that have grown up with her. One of them asks if what they're about to do is a good idea, and she tells him to relax because no one will catch them, and she lays out the game plan. They're going to rob this rich man's apartment and sell what they can find, staying out of sight. They jump from the roofs of the city, and Vi helps her scared little sister Powder as she barely keeps up with them. They reach the rich guy's apartment, and this eyebrow guy tries to lockpick it. Glasses guy over here then notices that the streets below are crawling with enforcer cops, which means they must be in the right place. Vi gets tired of waiting and busts down the door. Going inside, they see all these fancy gadgets, and Vi suspects that the guy they followed must be an inventor. Not knowing what any of this stuff is, they quickly start collecting everything before anyone comes home. And meanwhile, Powder explores one of the rooms but finds this strange-looking chest. Opening it, she sees these strange blue crystal balls. But suddenly, everyone hears a bang at the door. Someone is trying to enter. Acting quickly, they wedge this chair at the door and block the entrance, and quickly try to escape through the balcony. Vi yells out to her sister that they need to leave, shocking Powder, and she decides to steal the mystery crystal balls but clumsily drops one on the floor on the way out, and it begins to charge up. The owner nearly breaks in as Vi's crew runs out, but suddenly the blue crystal ball hits the wall and the entire apartment blows up, violently shocking everyone back. They all begin to freak out, and the noise alerts all the cops nearby on the streets. Parts of the building begins to crumble and fall onto the city streets. Enforcers and citizens all look up and spot Vi and her siblings in the chaos. The sirens quickly go off and everything goes to shit. Vi's group tries to escape through the city streets while the city's enforcers chase after them. More and more of them show up and nearly overwhelm them. Vi thinks fast, leading her group down this dark alley, and they quickly open this sewer door, and Vi aggressively pushes everyone down to escape. Alright, look, I get it, that was crazy, but if I was these kids, I would have stolen from the building by using the principles from sales psychology. Let me explain. First off, your information. You just took information on its face value from a friend down in the lanes. Why would you do that? You live in the lanes, the dump of the two cities, okay? Instead, I would rely on subconscious habits, because these kids don't even know the name of the person that they stole from. What are their names? What's their occupation? What are their daily habits? What about the comings and goings? Where do they like to frequent? When you have more information, then and only then should you think about stealing from them. And on top of that, don't steal everything at once. They didn't know if this person would be home or not. And on top of that, all the guards below them should have made them think a little bit more about what exactly they were trying to do. Maybe pick a different part of the day when there weren't so many guards. Look, I get it. Sometimes we all want what we can't have, especially when there isn't much of it. We need to use a tactic used in marketing, when brands put limited time special offers on their products in order to encourage customers to feel the urgency to buy useless crap. Steal enough things from our target to make him have an emotional reaction is a terrible idea, because when you take the most precious thing from him, then he has more motivation to find you, to hunt you down, to get the police to hunt you down. Only steal a few things. Also, bringing along a little kid, why the frick nuts would you do that? Don't bring a little snot to your operation. Lock her in a room. That's what I would do. And then you'll be able to get away scot-free. You're welcome. Confused on what just happened, the siblings automatically point the finger at Powder and wonder if she had something to do with it, because she is clumsy as hell, calling her a jinx. Vi tells them to stop whining because they just robbed someone's rich penthouse, which means they need to get back to their part of town now. They escape out of this entrance and quickly cross the bridge leading out of Piltover town, barely crossing it. They manage to escape into Lane territory, escaping the cops for now. But they just run into some Lane thugs who tell them that the news of a robbery in Piltover has already reached their side of town, and they think they did it. Vi thinks it's a little weird that they already know, since no one everyone in Piltover saw their faces, and she tries to keep things moving. This blonde guy's thugs surround Vi's group. Blondie thug here tells her to share their loot with him and he'll let them live. She agrees and calmly walks up to him, but tricks him and slams his face in with the treasure bag, handing it off to Powder, and her crew begin a street death match with these thugs, beating the shit out of each other as Powder watches on in horror at all the violence. This thug then targets Powder and chases after her. Meanwhile, Vi's crew successfully manages to beat these thugs up, winning the match. Blonde guy pulls out a knife, but Vi walks right up to him and calls his bluff, making him back away and retreat. And just then they realize that Powder is missing. Meanwhile, Vi's little sister runs for her life, reaching this dead end. She quickly uses her intelligence to create a small bomb out of scraps, throwing it at the thug, but nothing happens. Now trapped, she decides to throw the bag full of stolen treasure into the water nearby, distracting the thug, and she makes a clean getaway. Linking back up with her squad, she tells them the bad news that she just lost the bag of treasure. Eyebrow guy and glasses guy get annoyed and tell her to stop always jinxing everything. Vi tells them to chill out and tries to comfort her little sister. Now finally free from danger and now no treasure, they head back down into the lanes, the most dangerous part of the city, their home. In another part of town, this accountant works on collecting payment from these gangsters, but they don't want to pay the full price. This nerd gets nervous just as this big bartender joins them. The gangsters tell him to piss off, but he reveals that this is his bar, and these lowlives finally realize who he really is. Known as Vander, the Hound of the Underground. He basically runs the lanes. Scared of his badass Sigma reputation, the gangsters apologize and calmly agree to pay up, right as Vander notices his kids get back, and he goes to check in on them. And they try to keep what they did a secret, but Vander reveals that his connections have already told him what went down in Piltover, and the news mentioned 4 kids fleeing the scene. He gets mad and asks them, what the hell were they thinking? But Vi tries to defend her group and says that they were just trying to do a real job for once, and that they had it all planned out, but something went wrong. Vander tells Vi that she has a responsibility to look after her siblings because they only have each other, and warns them that the north side of town is off limits. He then tells others to leave and has a heart-to-heart with Vi. He says her siblings all look up to her, and it's her job to watch them, just as it's his job to watch over everyone down here in the lanes. If this creates problems for Piltover, then they will send their terrifying enforcer cops down here, and everybody will likely die. Finally agreeing, Vi tells them that they lost the treasure they stole, and Vander says, good, because this way no one will be able to tie them to the crime. He tells her to lay low for a while he goes to sort things out. He rounds up Glasses Guy to take him on a trip, and they head to meet with Vi's informant, the person who gave them the tip about the guy whose apartment they stole from. In the meantime, Powder goes to tell Vi about the blue crystals she found at the penthouse, but overhears Eyebrow Guy whining to Vi about how useless Powder is. She gets sad and goes to her room. Elsewhere, Vander finally reaches this pawn shop and talks to the owner, his old friend, and tells the young kid here, Vi's friend, an informant named Echo, to give them some privacy. Now alone, the two adults discuss Vander's kids and the situation. This mutton chop guy tells Vander that they are growing up and that he can't protect them forever. But Vander tells something concerning. Vi's mentioned that a group of thugs followed them today after they left Piltover town, and that somehow they knew they were carrying treasure. He suspects that somebody told the thugs to watch Vi's group, but it couldn't have been a cop, especially not from Piltover. That something much more terrifying could be going on. Outside, Glasses Guy waits outside and talks to Echo, the one who gave them the tip about Rich Guy, and he tells them that the rich guy came and paid for everything in gold. And because of this, he secretly followed him, and that's how he found out where he lived. And that's when some enforcers are spotted approaching the area, realizing they've been sent to investigate the penthouse robbery. Echo tells Glasses Guy to run before they find him, and the enforcers enter the shop where Vander and his friend are. They tell Vander he knows everything that went down here, and he thinks that he knows who committed this crime. This young enforcer cop named Marcus tries to act tough, but the older cop tells him to take a walk. Heading out, Echo hides from Marcus and sneaks back into the building. Curious, he secretly listens in on the adults in the bar. This older cop named Grayson then gets real personal with Vander, an old friend, and tells him that this time his people crossed the line and created way too much noise in Piltover, and Vander tries to reassure her that he will deal with his people, but Grayson says it's too late. The penthouse they destroyed belonged to one of the most powerful families in Piltover, leaving him a phone. She says to call her if he changes his mind. Meanwhile, Vi goes to check on Powder, but she reveals that she heard everything everything and feels really sad. Vi tries to comfort her and tells her that she's not a fighter, but a genius inventor, taking her to their rooftop. She tells her stories of their siblings and how they've all made mistakes in the past, but no matter what, they must always stick together. Powder then pulls out her blue crystal balls that she took from the rich guy's apartment, but Vi thinks, we probably shouldn't tell Vander about this for now, and that was her biggest mistake. Oh my gosh, if I was her, I would not do that. I would have saved us all the long-term agony by employing some very nasty, poverty-inducing psychological warfare on her mind in order to permanently further destroy Powder's childhood innocence. Let me explain. Vander here is a reformed badass and is the basic president of the lanes of this rather interesting dumpster fire of a garbage heap, but him being influential means that he's got to have a lot of enemies that might try to take him down. Maybe help the guy out and tell your daddy about the freaking crystal blue powder balls, because why in the world would you not do that? Powder is a freaking child who's unreliable. Yeah, she can invent stuff, but they're not consistent. And also Powder, she's super clumsy and is always getting into trouble. And it makes you wonder why Vi didn't confiscate those tiny little crystal blue balls in the first place. Save yourself a potential nightmare. And when this object came from their target's apartment, the same target had a bunch of wild, untested experiments and a bunch of weird alien crap, and that same apartment blew up. If stuff like that happened, it might make me think that Vi really isn't that good of a sister. I would have put my freaking little foot down and would have told off Powder and told her that, hey, you're a freaking liability, you're gonna get us all killed. You need to keep your butt here and stay here so we can all live, and that you are dead weight. Because if Powder doesn't start listening to what Vi is saying, she's gonna get them all killed. Elsewhere, down in this dark, evil lair, the blondie thug from earlier, Deckard, gets tortured by this group of mysterious criminals. They warn him that he was only supposed to watch Vi's group and to not interfere with them, because now Vander is asking questions about it. And if they aren't careful, he will find out what's really going on. This man says they can't afford to have this happen. Scared and desperate, blonde guy tells them that Vander's kids are the ones who caused the explosion in the city, shocking these men. And this one leader thinks that his old friend Vander is now in trouble with Piltover, and this changes everything. He announces to his men that they must now speed up their timeline, and his henchmen show him what horrors they've been working on, setting up a live experiment right in front of him. They watch this cat inside of this cage with a rat. Scared, the rat drinks from this bottle filled with a mysterious pink potion, and very quickly it transforms into a huge mutated monster, and it instantly slaughters this cat, making this boss happy as hell, and tells him that in order to begin their evil plans, they must first test this potion on a live human. Ooh, he'll work. Blonde guy. The next day in Piltover town, the inventor whose apartment got stolen gets interrogated by the police, named Jace. Grayson here finds out that he is a student at the city's most prestigious science school, and whose family was saved by a mysterious wizard when he was a kid. But she delivers him some bad news and says they discovered a ton of illegal items in his apartment that he doesn't have permits for. This mysterious man close by overhears him and reveals that he is the assistant to the dean of the school Jace goes to, who's also the head of the council. He's been sent by the powerful dean to remove any magic-related items here that could be dangerous. Grayson then informs Jace the worst news of all. He must be taken to jail, and he will be investigated by the magic council, and they drag him away. Later, he gets a visit from someone special, the dean of the school and the head of the magic council, Professor Heimerdinger, but we'll call him Little Professor H. He said that Jace reminds him of himself, but warns him that great science, my boy, must never put anybody in danger and blah 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 blah. Jace tries to convince him that he's found a way to harness magic through science, but he needs more experiments to really figure it out. This makes Professor H nervous as hell, and warns him that the magic of Arcane is dangerous. It's a force of nature, and one that humanity shouldn't control. Alright, look, we're getting into some serious shite, but if I was Jace, I would maybe consider the actions of humanity over the last 3,000 years and would maybe compare them to the guy who invented the now standard car assembly line production. Let me explain. Despite what people tell you, society deep down is a rather selfish lot. From the when we were babies to toddlers, stealing from each other and lying, right? Kindness and honesty is a learned habit. According to the Anthropocene Research Group, a geoscience-based research team dedicated to investigating the impacts of humanity and what they have on the planet, they've officially declared we now live in a period of history where our impact on the Earth has now begun to show and is beginning to reach its limits, ever since humanity started growing big enough to become a threat to the world. Our need to be the main character in this story proves why Professor H worrying about magic and putting it in the wrong hands makes perfect sense, especially when you look at our history of the nature in the first place, okay? For example, in 1927, when Henry Ford wanted to create his own supply of rubber down in the Amazon rainforest, he basically tried to create an American town down here among the people that didn't want to be Americanized and tried to plant trees that couldn't actually be grown in the Amazon rainforest. This project, named Fordlandia, was a huge freaking mess, and this only made Ford more determined to tame the men in this jungle as well, and it resulted and a huge disaster for everybody, all because of one man's ego trying to play God. Despite for man's amazing potential for innovation and the potential good that magic could have, due to humanity's innate selfish shitty me attitude, I would have been way more cautious about developing this sort of technology in the first place, especially if a war happened because of the material or matter that we are working on, i.e. magic, because it could very well cause the destruction of the world. It almost did before. For a guy with a lot of looks and some brains, he's not that smart. Professor H reveals to Jace that while he, 24, in all of his great wisdom, might want to listen to the 307-year-old headmaster because he was alive when the city of Piltover was built, Professor H warns him that some science is better left unsolved, and this one is one of them. He then gives Jace the game plan of what to say when he meets the council at his trial, because he should own up to his mistakes, not mention anything about magic, because saying all of this destruction was because of magic will only freak everyone out, and if he does this, then he might get a little slap on the wrist and go free. Meanwhile, Vi and her siblings try to lay low from the cops, but then discover that several squads of them have started to move through the lanes, and then they overhear one of them interrogating a citizen. They ask this lowlife if they know who committed that explosion, but this dude tells them to go fudge themselves, and then he gets thrown through this window right where Vi's family is, instantly getting spotted by the enforcers. They come inside and everybody holds their breath, and they try to play it cool as the place gets searched. One of them walks up to Powder, but that's when Vi looks at Powder staring at her, and she sees what she has in her pocket. Shit, it's horrifying. She is still carrying the blue crystal energy balls. But that's when Vi signals Glasses Guy to create a distraction, shutting down the power. All the kids quickly make a break for it. Running out of the back, the gang quickly gets cornered, but then sees Echo pop out from nowhere to save them, dropping them this ladder. They escape by the skin of their teeth. Vi tells Powder that she needs to hide those crystals now. Elsewhere back in Piltover, this counselor named Melmardara sneakily plans how to gain more power within the council. She complains to her minions that they need to discover and find something that will put this city back on the map again and make her stand out from the council, since she is seen as the weakest of them. Her assistant throws out some wild ideas, and Oak mentions that there is a trial going on right now for a man named Jace. Meanwhile, back in the lanes, Vander's people are getting angry at what's been going on. Too many cops have been showing up and have gotten into their businesses, and lives are getting ruined. They think they should retaliate, but Vander reminds them that it's peacetime right now between the rich and the poor city, and that they shouldn't disrupt the delicate balance. He reminds them they tried this years ago, and it was a complete bloodbath. He begs his people to listen to him and tells them that he's doing this to protect them. This one lady named Savika tells Vander that he's changed, and he is no longer the bloodthirsty animal he once was, and he's grown weak. Vi and her siblings listen in, and also wonder why Vander doesn't want to fight. But they find out from Echo that he overheard that Vander made a deal with the Piltover police. The next day, the trial of Jace begins, and he shows up to meet the council of Piltover. The most powerful people gather around, including Mel and his Caitlin's mother. Her and Professor H vouch for Jace, and he follows exactly what the Professor H tells him to say and doesn't say zip zilch nada about any magic. But this backfires, because now the council thinks that Jace was just messing around with dangerous equipment for no reason, and now think he's not fit to live in this city anymore. Desperate, Jace blurts out his real reason for creating the most dangerous experiment and mentions the use of magic and tells them the most insane thing ever. He was trying to artificially create magic through science, shocking everybody and disappointing Professor H. This one council member warns him that arcane magic is something you are born with and cannot be created. But Jace tells them that magic can be used for good and that they should take a chance. But Professor H tells him to shut it because he doesn't know what's at stake. Now that everything's out on the table, Professor H reveals to Jace and reminds the rest of the council members why they should be so afraid of what Jace has just discovered. He was alive during the Great War and saw how destructive arcane magic was and how it corrupted the minds of anybody who wielded it. Piltover was founded to escape the destruction that evil wizards created all those centuries ago and must be protected from this. The council agrees with him and tells Jace that trying to make magic accessible to the common people is too risky, and because of this, he must be banished at once. But then Jace's mother then interrupts the proceedings and tells them that her son is not in his right mind and chases an impossible dream to change the world. Her tears make Professor H have a heart, and he said that he can understand Jace's dream, his enthusiasm, and saves him by convincing the council to expel him from his academy and to go back into the care of his parents. Later, Jace's mom tells her son that he should be grateful that he got let off as easily as he did. She warns him that magic saved their lives once, years ago, but he should stop obsessing over it. It'll ruin his life. Pissed off, Jace says he could have convinced the council if she stuck to his side and tells her that if she won't support him, he will find someone else who will. Okay, this has turned into an absolute shit show. I would be able to predict everything that happened right here years ago by just focusing on the third goal of the scientific method. Let me explain. Jace here is one of the youngest, brightest, and most handsome people in all of the city. At least that's what we see from the show. So because of this, it makes sense why he's been acting way more like a scientist in training than an actual scientist. Because here's the thing, in science, the first steps is to analyze and answer research-based questions, and is to go through something known as the scientific method, where scientists will first make observations about something, and then from there researching what is already known about the topic that they are studying to come up with a theoretical hypothesis in order to answer their question. And in this case, Jace studying to be a scientist meant that he should have expected major pushback when he revealed his findings to a city that is terrified of anything related to magic. One of the first 3 goals of the scientific method is 1. Understanding, which Jace already knew a lot about magic and also nothing about magic at the same time. 2. Prediction, where will this discovery lead to? What are the potential ramifications? Which Jace already stated. And 3, most importantly, control. For scientists to be able to understand their subject matter so much that they are able to manipulate the matter in whichever way they choose. But I get it, Jace revealing what he was working on may have been his only way to save himself, but in reality, he should have been way more conscious about studying how to control magic. And he should have understood that proving that he could control magic at all would have taken more than just one man to solve his problem. Meanwhile, back in Professor H's study, he discusses with his assistant about Jace's magic theory. The assistant tries to convince him that Jace's innovation could be watched over by him, and this would allow them to see if Jace is really onto something. But Professor H dismisses him and orders him to burn Jace's study and all of his work, not realizing that his assistant has other plans, and he secretly swipes one of Jace's diaries. Elsewhere, the Council of Piltover calls Grayson and her partner Marcus to give them an update on their investigation, but she tells them that her police still haven't found the culprits. Concerned, the council warns her that because magic was involved, the public is getting scared, and now everybody's starting to get worried about if somebody is running around wild with magic powers. The robbers must be captured soon, or else Grayson will be in huge trouble. A little later, Grayson's younger partner Marcus gets a tip to meet with a strange man who says he can help him and his partner with the investigation, not revealing his identity. He and Marcus make a deal in exchange to help find the penthouse culprits. He then uses this tip to take the investigation into his own hands, taking some police backup men to meet Vander. Entering this bar, Marcus directly tells him that he knows this guy knows the culprits and asks where the 4 kids are. He signals for his men to search the place. Vander quickly sends an alert to his kids downstairs, telling them that trouble is coming. Quickly hiding, this cop enters the room and finds it empty, not realizing that just above him, Powder is holding on to dear life. Back upstairs, Marcus asks for a drink while he waits and tells Vander that he recently ran into one of his old friends and says that he knows that Vander used to be a ruthless criminal warrior. Shocking Vander, he realizes who Marcus met up with, and this changes everything. Just below, the cop gives up looking for the kids and leaves the room right before Powder falls, barely. He heads back upstairs and reports that he found nothing, pissing off Marcus, and they leave. Marcus warns everyone that he's going to bury all of them soon. Letting out a sigh of relief, Vander quickly goes to check in on his kids, and Vi gives him a dose of reality. He can't help them anymore, and soon they will get caught unless they fight back. Vander hesitates, and Vi warns him and says that if he says no, they will fight without him at the end of his ropes. Vander takes Vi to this bridge outside of their home to show her why he's trying to keep the peace with the cops from Piltover. He reveals that he was once angry like her and led their people across this bridge years ago, wanting to change the power imbalance. His people tried to fight the rich but got slaughtered, and because of his actions, Vi's parents got killed. He warns her that revenge will cost her the people she loves. He finally tells her that he doesn't know what to do when the enforcers come back, but they'll figure it out. Back at Jace's apartment with no future, he prepares to have a long drop and sudden stop, but then gets interrupted by Professor H's assistant. He tells him that he likes what he's trying to do and hands him one of his experiments from earlier that he stole from the Academy vault, one of his blue crystal energy balls. And he introduces himself as Victor and tells him that he doesn't want to be an assistant forever and wants to partner up with Jace to help him with his experiment. Jace says that he can't do anything without his equipment, but that's when Victor reveals that he knows where his equipment is being held. And since he is the assistant to the headmaster, he has the keys to the room, and the two agree to become partners. A little later, Marcus reaches back to police headquarters and gets in trouble with Grayson for going down into the lanes without permission. She calls him a fool and tells him that he doesn't realize what he's just done. But then a message arrives. Later that night, Vander rushes back home, storming, and he tells Vi something is going down and they need to hide. He shoves her down into this basement right as these cops show up, prepared to arrest someone. And Grayson is with them and gives him one last out, telling him that she now has no choice. He is not the one they want. Give her the girl, telling him that if he goes to prison to cover for her, everything everything that he's worked for down the lanes will fall apart. But Vander says this is the only way. Piltover wants their pound of flesh, and the cops lead the way outside of the bar, taking Vander with them. Downstairs, Vi bangs on the door and yells out to Vander, but that's when she hears a violent commotion outside through this window. And suddenly streaks of blood paints the window, blinding her vision, and Vander and the survivors outside stare in confused shock. And what just happened? They see something has just brutally slaughtered all of the cops here, including Grayson. Then they spot a familiar face approaching them down the distance. Recognizing him, and Mutton Chop gets angry and begins to charge at the man. Vander tries to stop him, but he gets slaughtered as well by this unknown mutant creature. Marcus angrily calls out to this man named Silco and tells him that this wasn't part of the deal, but Silco says deals change. This mutant creature approaches Vander and knocks him out, all the while as Vi watches him get taken away through a blood-stained window. She finally manages to break out, and Echo tells her that he knows where they took Vander, down into the worst part of town. Silco reaches his operating base with Vander, telling him that his methods may be extreme, but explains that sometimes base violence is necessary for change, because the rich people of Piltover won't listen to any other way. Vander warns him that his evil army of mutants won't be able to stop them, but Silco tells him that he doesn't need to win. He just needs to scare them, so that no rich person will ever set foot underground again, and they can rule this underground city without any authority. He tells Vander that he's disappointed in him. They were friends once. They once wanted the same thing for the lanes. He then announces that after years of experimentation, they finally have the upper hand against them, revealing this new potion called Shimmer. With this, they can finally achieve their dream of ruling this city. Back in Piltover, Victor and Jace manage to sneak into the council's storeroom, but get caught by one of the council members, Mel. With nothing left to lose, Jace begs her to believe in him and that his invention works. Victor quickly chimes in to tell her that they figured out how to stabilize it. Desperate for some success, Mel gives them one chance to prove their theory for her, and she covers for them while they get back to work. Trying to stabilize the crystal, they suddenly set off a whole heck of a lot of lights in the room, but some of the soldiers outside get alerted, now on the clock. They quickly set off their magic just as their experiment freaks out, and they barely manage to harness the power of magic, and oh, it was close. The now alerted guards reach the room and bust down the door, along with Professor H. But everyone sees that this time, the boys have actually done it. Mel joins in and tells them that because of their recent discovery, perhaps now the Magic Council will now have to decide that maybe they should usher in a new age of magic. But Jace corrects her and says, not magic, hex tech. In the meantime, Vi finally reaches her siblings and tells them what just happened, telling everybody to suit up to go save Vander. Powder tries to join in, but Vi tells her it's too dangerous, especially for her, and she must stay behind. But of course she doesn't listen and follows after them. She threw her toys on the floor and suddenly came up with a terrifying idea. An absolutely horrific idea. Vi's group finally arrives at Silco's location, thanks to Echo, and try to break Vander out, but it's a trap. Silco suddenly enters and brings his men in to stop them, and everybody gets ready for a death match. Vi whips out Vander's old fighting gloves from back in the day, and this big tattooed hulking cue ball of a man tries to attack her, but she smacks him down and takes him out, and she tries to keep Silco's minions busy while her groups work on freeing Vander, and Silco smiles and whips out another pink potion, giving it to blonde guy from earlier, and he turns into a horrifying monster once more. Vi tries to attack it, but he easily grabs her and throws her down. Nearby Powder, not listening to her sister, reaches the warehouse and sneaks up onto the roof. She sees her sister through this window and sees Vi lock her and her family in this room, and sees the monster trying to break down the door. Knowing it's only a matter of time until this mutant breaks in, she takes out her electric energy balls and puts one of them into her toys. Winding it up, she carefully sets it down and sends it towards the mutant monster, and it begins banging, 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 sending shockwaves. And then finally, it explodes, sending a massive wave of energy around everybody, instantly killing Glasses Guy and Eyebrow Guy. Powder didn't save anyone. This is bad. Look, if I was them, I would have used the unique architecture of this place. I mean, look at it. This bad guy's headquarters with its shutter doors, I would have used that way better in order to be able to help Vander escape and everybody stay alive. Let me explain. Vi yet again proved how she is a horrible leader. It seems like she never takes into account Powder's manic personality and her inability to stay still. Sounds like to me like Powder's got some sort of form of ADHD, because look at Powder. She shows signs of being unable to sit still, unable to concentrate on a task given to her, and clearly acted without thinking to the point that she was given the nickname Jinx. Powder acts on impulse without thinking, and that's a huge trait that Vi should have spotted earlier. So by taking into account Powder's craziness, I would have locked her up or sedated her, put together some sort of cocktail that's the equivalent of CBD oil, maybe some lavender, maybe some ashwagandha, mellow this girl out and lock her up and put her away, because then you don't have a potential loose cannon happening. Also, when doing this plan, I would not have have rushed over to go save Vander with just my crew? Look, Vander is an important, influential person. Sounds like the most important person in the lanes. I'm sure that there's some people sympathetic to him, that like his leadership. Maybe go find them and have them come help you, because then you would have had extra help. And then don't rush in, no! Wait on the roof before entering. And from that vantage point, you can look at the windows and have a good view of the whole inside of the building. One of the signs commonly found in most of transportation of goods into and out of buildings are shuttered doors. When showing up on the roof of this warehouse, I would have first noted that for a bad guy headquarters, security is awfully light, which is super suspicious to begin with. And due to the fact that we don't know what we're up against, I would have shown up with all the people that I brought with me and have stationed some of them outside of the warehouse. That way we have some sort of backup being able to come in and help us out. And on top of that, we need some sort of mobile ride more than just our feet to be able to drive right through the large roller shutter door entrances, which then would have allowed us to park our getaway vehicle or getaway whatever closer to where Vander was being held and be able to make for a much easier mode of transportation. Vi, yet again, is a horrible leader, a horrible planner, and that is why Vander never trusted her to pull any jobs for him personally. After, in the rubble, Vander wakes up somehow not dead and sees his kids dead, and Vi badly injured, furious and in a rage. He easily kills Silco's surviving henchman and attacks the mutant, trying to reach Silco. But he gets fatally stabbed in the back by him, pushing him off of this bridge. Bones broken, organs punctured, and about to die. Vander drinks one of Silco's shimmer potions and transforms into a horrible monster himself. Getting up, he easily kills Blonde Guy and directs Vi to get out of here. The potion now taking over his mind, he spots Silco and tries to get him again, but realizes that he needs to help Vi escape. Directing his attention to her, he quickly gets her out of the building before the whole thing explodes. And on the street, Vander tells Vi to watch over Powder, and he finally kicks the bucket. And just then, Powder finds Vi and happily tells her that her monkey bomb worked. It worked. She saved everybody. But that's when she sees Vander dead. And Vi realizes that she is the one responsible for all of the deaths, and her eyes go cold. Powder starts crying and desperately says that she only wanted to help. She didn't mean this. And she begs Vi, please believe me, please believe me. But Vi grabs her and tells her that she never listens and that she is a jinx and shoves her away. And Vi leaves the scene as Powder begs her, screams for her to not leave her. Now all alone, Powder breaks down as a badly injured Silco shows up with his men, ready to kill her. Vi sees this in the distance and tries to go back and rescue her, but gets grabbed by Marcus and tells her that if she goes there, she'll die. And he knocks her out with a sleeping drug and drags her into the shadows. Silco and his men then decide to spare Powder, and Powder hugs him, shocking Silco, and she says that Vi left her and isn't her sister anymore. Seeing his once old friend Vander dead in front of him, he decides to adopt her and tells her that they will soon pay. They will soon, all of them, pay. But what do you guys think about the video? Let us know what you like about it and what you didn't like it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and as always, don't forget to check out our How to Be playlist.